Okay, so let's go over sort of the basic paths and some general advice on the board game. I want to actually go and make a demonstration because the individual demonstration is pretty pointless given the amounts of RNG involved and all that. So I'll just use this check course feature and move around and tell you what to do. So, on a normal board, the first 2 years, this section is the crux of the sort of everything. So, you see that you want to, ideally you want to just take this path and land on these middle squares and then move on. Because obviously they're very valuable, double growth, and they're also very, very fast, because you have to take less steps rather than doing all this other path around. So you really want to try and get yourself into a position to take this path safely as often as possible, because obviously you cannot take the risk on the despair squares. If you land on a despair square, that's way too much of a drawback and it's not worth it. So you want to be able to set yourself up to take this safely, and so from this it sort of has a ripple effect on how you play this other side of the board. So this is the start, where you start from in thinking about the board. You want to be able to choose whether you want to go in here or not, depending on what you roll. And so if you're on this, if you land on this center square, that's very good, because you can just do a long roll, and then if you get 4 or 5, you can just get on this 2 squares safely and then move on. And if you get a 6, tough luck, but at least you can just go around and take a safer, a bit shittier but safer path. So this is a good square to land, and for the same reason the one just before is also a very good square to land on, because you can roll again for similar reason. 5 or 6 gets you through the path, and if you get unlucky with a 4, it's not too bad. You just take the slightly longer path and go on like that. So these 2 squares are good places to land on. We've established this. What about this friendship square before it? Well, it's not good. It's actually very not good, but you can, because obviously it loses time. Friendship squares are to be avoided at all costs, because it just plays a scene that lasts often like 10 seconds or thereabouts. It's really bad. And the stats it gives you are also not very useful. Friendship squares are really just not something you really want to avoid, generally speaking. However, this friendship square in particular, if you land on it, it's not the end of the world, because once again, if you small roll from here, if you do 1 or 2, if you land 1 or 2, you get into those 2 really safe, really nice squares here. So it's not the end of the world, but if from here you roll 3, it can get really bad, because landing on this double square, look at what you have ahead of you. You pretty much need a card to make sure that you don't get destroyed by the despair squares if you land on this double square. So if you roll 3, you're often just forced to go here and take another time loss with the event square, and then also another time loss with the fact that you have to go all the way around. So this friendship square is like okay, because if you roll 1 or 2 you're fine, but there is some danger if you roll 3 and you don't have the right cards to accommodate for it. So if you want to get, so we've established that how we want to approach this section, right? And we've established that we want to land on these 2 growth squares if we can, and now you have to think about this section in the sort of with the point of view that you do want to end up on these 2 squares eventually. And so how can you end up on these 2 squares? Well, the most direct way is from this square that's in the center of the screen right now, this growth square, in the sort of in the where it branches past. Because if you long roll from here, if it does 4, you just go up and it's not the end of the world. And if it does 5 or 6, you go up here, which is what we want. But obviously from this square you're often tempted to small roll for the double talent. So this sort of depends on what you need. However, if you do end up going this way for the double talent, let's look at this sort of area. So this center square, again, where it branches off sort of northwest or northeast and southwest, this center growth square is another really good square to land on, because if you do, you can just long roll, and if you do 5 or 6, look at where you land, exactly where you want. And if you do 4 from this center square, you just take it the other way and take a double growth, and then you can, from this double growth, you can once again long roll, and maybe you get unlucky and land on the friendship square we discussed, but you know, 1/3 of the time you'll be fine and land over here. So this growth square in the middle is very, very good in most occasions. So yeah, the growth square here is very good, and the talent square right by it is also very good. And this single talent square is not excellent, but you can long roll, and once again you have this thing where 2 out of 3 outcomes are good with these double growth squares. So here we have a sort of nice cluster of 3 squares. They're just kinda nice to land on. The double talent because it's double talent, the growth square because it's broken and every outcome is good, and this single talent square, which is still decent enough at setting you up for this crossing. So yeah, that's sort of how I approach this section. I try to land myself in this area, and then if I don't need the talent, maybe I can just breathe through if the rolls cooperate, but that's sort of niche. Most often you will just go through here, see what you can pick up, see if you can land on double talent, and then try to long roll through this, or long roll to the growth square and then through this other way. Generally speaking, to make sure that you are on pace to complete the year safely, you want to be here in these double growth squares around September or October. Maybe even August, probably even August, honestly. This path maybe around September or October, because obviously most often you will be able to take this path, and so it will take 1, 2, let's say you even spend 2 small rolls here because you'll get unlucky or something, 3, 4, then 5 to cross. So if you cross on March, then you go back, that's February, January, December, November, that's you would end up at November here, but you won't always be able to be here on this shorter path. Sometimes the rolls will not cooperate and you just cannot take it and you have to go the long way. And so if you set yourself up to be here in November, then all of a sudden you're screwing yourself over completely if you have to take this other path. So set yourself up to be, very safe here by August, September, and then see where that takes you. You will sort of get a feel for how many small rolls you can afford before it gets too late. But this part of the board is really where the magic happens on most years. You will need to play a bunch and get a feel for sort of the decisions that you have to make. Now the start, real quick. Obviously this was the hardest part. The start is just a straight line, but I'll go over it. Just avoid this friendship square. You small roll, and then you long. If you do 2 or 3, you can just long roll through. If you do 1, you take another small roll to avoid the friendship square, and then do a long roll. That's pretty much all there is to it. And then depending on where you land, you can choose. And once again, we went over what sort of squares are good in this corner and what sort of squares are less preferable. I would often just aim for this area, and then if you land like here, you just mole roll and go to one of these 3, or that sort of thing in general. And yeah, that's about it. I guess the ending real quick. The double talent squares are often very good, because especially on like your N, we don't really go to the talent board. It would be way too overkill, but you do need to grab a few of these double talent squares. So if you can set yourself up to land on these double talent squares, even using cards and the sort and that sort of thing, then that's very good. Double talent squares, the sooner you get them out of the way, the better, essentially, because you'll never like, growth squares will never be out of the way in this map, but talent squares will be. So when you can get a chance to get double talent, you should probably take it. But obviously this one here, it can lose you a lot of time if you like take too many small rolls trying to land it. So you have to make some considerations, but generally speaking, landing on talent squares is good. Don't force it too much, And on year 3, obviously, it plays completely different, because you don't have to pass the goal anymore. So this bit is completely irrelevant. We're now interested in this bit over here. This bit over here, look at all the double growth. You can farm so many levels over here, and it's really, really good. And then they nicely also added a couple of double talent squares along the way, in case you're sort of on your last year, you don't have your talent yet. You can just pop by these 2 squares and hopefully round up your fragments. Now, what we said here about these 2 growth squares being good is suddenly worthless, because we just want to go over here. And the best way to go through this section is just to accept that you might land on a friendship square, and you can just, but the way they are spaced out, you can always guarantee, like, if you're here, say, you see that there will be, obviously small roll is very bad, because it gets your friendship 2 out of 3, but if you're here, then long roll is fine, because long roll gets you double growth 2 out of 3. And if you're on this friendship square, for example, then long roll is bad, because you have friendship and event right above it, but small roll will be fine, and that sort of thing. So that's how you play this board. Year 3 is really simple. You basically just zoom through all of these pleb places and just rush to the doubles area as soon as possible. You just board all your cards, do everything together very quick, and then just farm levels. On year 3, sometimes you will want to go out of your way for this talent square if you're really behind on talent, but that's about it. That's all there is to it. This area of the board we almost never visit. This area of the board, it has all of these nice double squares spaced out nicely as well for you to land on them. But it's just so many extra squares at the dawn, so you need to get here early. It's 11 extra squares you have to walk, or I guess 10, since this one, yeah, 10 extra squares you have to walk compared to just taking this shorter path. And that's like a lot of squares, especially considering you will probably want to be small rolling through it to get all the double squares. So it's not very reliable. I almost never go here. If you get here in this side of the board early with like a high jump card or something, then definitely do and go use your turns here, because you can get a lot of resources. But unless you're using an high jump card, this section of the board is very, it's very, just difficult to use. So that was the normal board. Now I'll see if I can show the talent board, because this one is not useful at the start. You can just save this for later, when you go and train up your U units. But I'll go over it for general just because, like, you know, I'm just doing it all now. It's probably better. So, talent board. Oh, oops, did not mean to do that. Year 2, okay, so you see the standard loop in talent board is extraordinarily bland. It's all single squares all the way through. And this one double talent square at the end, which is surrounded by squares that you never really want to land on, because landing on the goal does nothing for you, and landing on the square is obviously not optimal. So, doing as a regular loop around talent square it's so bad, but you just need it on some setups, because you just need another round on talent on the talent board. There's nothing much you can do to improve this. You just need 2 years on the talent board, and one of them has to be shit because you have to cross the goal in the second year. So what I will do often is just high jump on year 2 if I have it, so that maybe I can land like over here on my first round, and then just clean up this a bit and then head down for the rest of it. Or maybe if high jump lands you near the end, you can just cross the goal as fast as possible and make your way. It takes a bit, but you'll eventually get over here, which is also a nice section of the board to be in. So that's what's going on with talent board. If you have nothing to make it fancy, then a year is very bland. It's just going around the loop. But if you have cards, then maybe you can get more resources from it. There isn't literally nothing to talk about in the basic loop, because you're just going around, avoiding friendship squares and whatever, but it's all very basic decisions. Sometimes this area of the board will appeal to you when you're doing a single loop. Maybe if you've gotten a lot of long rolls and you have spare time to spend, then going up here can be good, especially if you have cards to manipulate your position accurately, because you really don't want to be losing time trying to dodge these pair squares and maybe like going back over here. That's really bad. But if you have like cards to make sure you're just, you know, doing it neatly, like double talent, move on, then that's obviously a worthwhile use of your time. This talent board gets like entirely different once you're on year 3 and you're allowed to look over here. Look at how many double squares in a row without like anything in your way. Like, this area is the best. Year 3 with your use, you definitely want to be here. You even have double growth here, and another double growth there, and a single growth, and another single growth. In case you're short on levels on your last year, which is, you know, it's nice because you pretty much already know how many levels you will need going into the last year, because it's the last year. So if you need 10, then you go out of your way. Obviously use have the increased growth, so on a double growth square they take like 10, and so if you need that sort of level, then you will aim for these 2 squares, and if not, you can just breeze through cash in on all the juicy double talent. So yeah, once again, this one has less decisions to talk through, because you just go over here, and it's once again a straight line, straight line, straight line, straight line, straight line. Here there's technically a decision, but practically you just want to go up, because look at this. This is where you want to be. This is brilliant. It's absolutely broken side of the board. So yeah, that's year 3 on talent. Talent board is a lot simpler to play than the normal board. The normal board has some nasty decision making. Talent board is very simple. Yeah, I would say that's it for the boards. Now let me see if I can pull up my card list, so that I can talk through the cards and what they do and how to use them. let me see this. No, not this. Hold on. Give me a second. It would be in here, I think. I have some spreadsheets I'm going through. I don't think I actually have a neat card list anywhere. But okay, hold on. This will probably do. Let me see. How do I record this? Here. Here. Okay. Forgive the Italian Google documents. That's not something you see every day. Okay. Here is, you know, these are all the encounters. Those are just data on what happens when you encounter people, but it also happens to list all the cards, so it'll be good enough. I mean, these are also good things to memorize, I suppose. Which character gives you which card, but it's not nearly as relevant on 100% as it is on any percent. Because on any percent you really want to grind those success cards, and because obviously you need to get a surgery on your first character on the sort of any percent floor shitty run, and you want to grind a surgery, but here it's not relevant at all. So it's obviously good knowledge to have, but I'm sure there's a lot you're trying to learn right now, so I'm not going to suggest memorizing all of this. It just sort of happened over time to me as I played the game more. You just sort of remember, but it's definitely something that takes a while, and it's not something that I would spend time studying. So let's go over I guess I'll just go in order. Let's start from zero move and then do all of these and then do the rest. So zero move card, it's good. It's a good card because you're just first of all, the animation is incredibly fast because it doesn't even like start to move or bothers telling you that you should move. It's just instant, and you can just use it whenever you're on a double square to get more of that double square. Zero move is very nice, generally speaking. It's not particularly strong for building your character, but it's nice because it's quick and it's obviously worth speedrunning, so that's good. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 and 6 move. They all have their uses. Their specific applications will be specific to your situation, to your roles, to your board. But generally speaking, they're not too valuable. So if you just see a chance to use it to get yourself, I don't know, a double square somewhere, just pull the trigger on it. You know, they're not too valuable. If you have a good excuse to use a card, just do it. Bring yourself in a nice position. If they're especially valuable to bail you out of places where you're like where you have to do like a roll, and 2 out of 3 of the outcomes of the roll would be bad, but you can just have the card that guarantees the one good outcome, and then that really opens up your possibilities. So, but they're just really basic cards. The X move cards. There's not much to explain. I think it's just situational, but if you can get good value out of them, use them. If not, save them for when you can get good value out of them. Simple as that. Now let's go down the list. Success. Now success cards, I would say they're entirely useless on most of your runs, because you don't, the surgery chance is really not high. You'll get like maybe 1 in 10 or something like that. And those are the chances of just being offered a surgery. So I guess if it doesn't hurt, you keep it in your inventory, because if it happens and you can take it, then that's really, really nice. But if I have to just dump the success card, I often just do it, because the odds of it being useful are very low. And obviously there is no use in keeping multiple success cards, because you're never going to be offered multiple surgeries. So whenever you get more than one, that you can for sure burn them. And that's sort of all there is to it. It's just a nice thing to have in your inventory as a one-off, I suppose, but it's not the end of the world if you don't get any, and it's definitely one of the more sacrificable cards. Double square is really good because it makes your character twice as strong. Well, not twice as strong, but like it makes the square double. That's pretty self-explanatory. It's a really good card. There's nothing else to say really. When you get double squares, you're happy because your character is stronger, and you can often use it to like build yourself out if you need like a lot of talent fragments, but you have like double square plus X move card to guarantee that you land on a double fragment. That's another thing about the X move cards. You can use them to guarantee double square being good, which is always nice, because otherwise the only place where you can guarantee double square being good is like on those final straightaways on the year 3 boards where you go out to the remote sections, and there's just, you know, many double squares in a row. Because obviously you want to double square a square that is already double. That was probably worded confusingly. You want to use double square when you're going to land on a double square, so that way you have a quadruple square instead of just a double square. So you want to use your double square then, and having a way to guarantee that you land on a double square is not easy. So it's either on year 3 or it's combined with a 2 move or a 3 move or one of those. And so if I get double square early, I often just burn a 2 move or a 3 move, or, you know, an anything move to guarantee that I land the double square and I just get it out of my inventory, because things can get, you know, clogged up very easily if you don't sort of use your cards as you go, if you save up to money. So it's good to get them out when you have them, and often you will have to save up like X move cards to get them out. But they are really strong. It takes some inventory management to use them, but they're really strong. So they're good to have. Encounter, I just sort of see Encounter as a X move card again, because essentially what Encounter does is just it turns into different X move cards depending on where the characters spawn on the board. So on any given turn, your encounter card might be a 4 move or a 3 move or a 1 move or, you know, whatever. It's nice to have, but it's not. It's nice to have, especially on the early years when you're having to go like through the middle path. Like if you can guarantee going through the middle path with a good encounter card, and that's very nice. If you can guarantee, like, you know, landing on double talent with a good encounter card, that's very nice. It's a neat card to have, but it loses a lot of value in the end game, I think, because on year 3 there's not many precise movements you want to do, and likewise on talent board there's not a lot of very precise movements you want to do. So encounter cards, they use them early if you get good chances for them. They're not very powerful, but they're nice tools to have, and, you know, obviously if you have an encounter card, keep that fact in mind. It's kind of difficult being aware of your inventory of all times and remembering what you have, but you definitely build an ability to think and account for your cards as you play more. Now high jump is one of the most game-changing ones. I would say high jump has only one place, exactly one turn in across all 3 years where you can use high jump effectively, and it's the first month of year 2 you can high jump. Obviously you don't want to high jump late in the year if you're having to cross the goal, because if it high jumps you far away from the goal and you screw yourself over. So obviously high jumping late is not a thing. And then high jumping early in year 1, you can't do it because you don't have a high jump when you start. and high jumping early in year 3, you can do it, but if it puts you like right before the goal, then what are you going to do with your entire year? Because you're already at the goal and you don't even want to cross it, because taking the exam takes time. You know, it loses time to actually cross the goal on year 3. So high jump on year 3 is the no-go. High jump on year 1, you don't have it early enough, and high jump on year 2, the only time to use it is in the first month. So it is really good because it can land you on those, you know, fairway sections with a lot of double squares, and they can land you there early enough that you can just abuse those nice double squares and then make your way over to the goal, and you're fine. But they are pretty much outside of that specific use. They are useless. They are very, very situational. And there's pretty much only one situation where you can use them. So if by year 2, first month, if you've not used your high jump cards, you can toss them out. That's all there is to it. It's an incredibly good card, exactly on April of year 2, and then every other turn it's worthless. Now, double move and straight I sort of think of in the same vein, because they just allow you to cover a lot of distance in one turn, and I just save these for year 3, because obviously on year 3 you don't want to bother taking all your time through the early stages, the places with only single squares. You just want to rush and get to the gold rush side of the board as soon as possible. And so I often just save my double move and my straight squares, or straight cards, sorry, until year 3, because that's when they are most useful. What do we have left? Course change and goodbye. Okay, and hope also. I think that's all the cards we have left. Okay, course change. Now, course change in theory is really strong. In practice, there's the issue that it lands you in a place, on a random place, on a random board. If you could choose which course to go to, course change would be very good. But you can't, it's random, so it's just not reliable at all. I think, you know, in any percent there might be some niche scenario where course change is helpful, but on what you are doing on a 100% run where you want to be consistent, course changes, there are too much variance, so pretty much just never use it, never even think about using it. Immediately discard any that you have, and that's all there is to it. Bad card, sadly. Goodbye cards are obviously entirely useless, but coupled with encounter cards, they sort of enable you to get a better encounter, or at least, you know, re-roll your encounters, and maybe you can change a 2-move card that's useless on a specific turn into a 3-move card that's very good. So goodbye is only helpful in combination with encounter, and encounter by itself is not a very valuable one. It's one you want to burn as soon as possible. So the chances of actually getting a goodbye encounter combo and the chances of it actually working, they're very low. But it's pretty much the only use for goodbye cards you have. So I guess I'll mention it. Goodbye cards are entirely useless otherwise. So goodbye is another one that's very weak, very discardable. And lastly, hope card. It's nice because it lets you go through the good section in the talent board, the one we've discussed at length. But at the same time, it says you're not, like, you know, if you have a hope card in land on a despair square, you're not losing stats, but you're also not gaining stats, so it's not a very good deal still, even with a hope card. So if it allows you to gamble on more valuable squares, then it has some worth, because you can make up the possible lost, the possible turn that you spend landing on a despair square and gaining 0 stats for a turn. You can make it up by then landing on double growth squares. But other than that, I would say it's pretty worthless. I would say if you're not needing, if you're not in urgent need of ways to go through the good area of the talent board, then hope cards have pretty much no use and are very easily discardable. It's easy to think that, you know, oh, I'll just keep the hope card for safety, but realistically, even landing on a despair score with a hope card is not a very good outcome. So you will just want to play around that outcome, so you will almost never land on a despair square, even when you do have a hope card. So yeah, it's just not very useful. So yeah, I would say that's all there is to, well, definitely not all there is, but it is most of what there is to card usage, at least, you know, the basics. And then obviously on any individual scenario there can be lots of ways to approach it, but this is my general you know, general tips for how to use them without knowing your specific situation. Yeah, I would say this covers a lot on what you need to know going into the board game. There are some more things like planning around the yearly events that I guess I'll mention them real quick. So you have 3 events. The first one is like August of year 1. The second one is like October of year 2. The third one is December of year 3. And they give you on any units 10, 11 and 12 fragments on year 1, year 2, year 3 respectively. And then obviously stronger units, stronger cards will get more fragments because they're stronger, but you know, that's the basic idea. And so these yearly events, you know, there's a chart that lets you know which outcomes are which, but I've only charted out the V3 characters. So it's very good that you learn, or at least, you know, make notes for that chart in somewhere. In somewhere, you know, make notes for that chart somewhere, because it's very powerful if you know exactly what you're going to get from those yearly events, instead of sort of having to plan around every outcome. Yeah, that V3 V3 yearly event chart is very helpful. That's all there is to it. You know, learn it for your first 10 characters, and unfortunately, well, we're sort of forced to only use V3 for the first 4 characters, and everything after that will be pulled from year 1, year 2. But still, 4 characters is not negligible, and it really does make a difference when you can plan knowing exactly what you're going to get. Because, for example, I make the example for English, right? You need 40 blue squares, and you get 10 from your 1 exam, and so you need 30, and you can just, with certainty, take all 3 yearly events, put it towards blue fragments, and that's your blue fragments done, and you don't have to worry about ever rolling for blue fragments. And so you just need to make up the remaining reds with talent squares, and you're done. So yeah, that's what's happening there. I think that covers all of the things I want to talk about for sort of, you know, general board game ideas. I don't think there's anything else too important that comes to mind. If there's any questions though, obviously let me know and I'll answer. Yeah. Thanks for watching, I hope you found this helpful. Just reach out to me on Discord if you have any questions, as usual.